I'm very comfortable with what I did. In fact, I'm very proud of the interview, and there were a lot of people that really liked it. And the reason I think that people were upset was that I didn't ask him about Anita Hill, and or didn't go back and refight this thing. What, 20 years later, almost 20 years later. I didn't find it interesting. I thought that I don't think anybody ought to be defined simply by, well, first of all, I don't think that anybody ought to be defined just by a small group of people. And I think that that's what had happened to Clarence Thomas, that people didn't know anything about him, didn't know where he came from, didn't know where he got his views, didn't understand why he was a conservative Republican. It was all Anita Hill. And I thought everybody knew that. And I thought that we asked him about it, and he just said he didn't want to talk about it, and we didn't push him, and we didn't go out and, I mean, look. You've got an opportunity to talk to a Supreme Court justice, particularly one who hasn't given hardly any interviews in 20 years. I wanted to do something more with the interview than just go back, rehash. Okay. All of that stuff.
With an interview like the one with Clarence Thomas, or others with prominent figures in public life, are ground rules set, or ground rules set with the interview with Clarence Thomas or with other important figures that you've interviewed, or is that something that doesn't happen? We will talk about this, but we won't talk about that.
No, I think that we didn't. I went down and met with Clarence Thomas before, and I told him that I did not want to make this interview about Anita Hill, even though he had written about it in the book, and we did a section on Anita Hill. We just didn't, go back over and try and rehash the. We laid out the details and we laid out what happened, but there was only so many things, so many questions you can ask about it. Did we promise him we weren't going to talk about it? No, I only told him that I didn't think that it was going to be the main, it was not going to be a 12-minute piece on what happened 20 years ago with Anita Hill. And there are occasions where you agree to, most of the time when you do agree to ground rules, usually there are legal reasons where you have somebody who is facing charges or possibly facing charges, is under investigation, who has been advised by their lawyers not to talk about something. Sometime if you're going to do an interview, if you're doing, we just did an interview with a couple of whistleblowers that is not run yet, but if you're doing interviews with whistleblowers, for example, they may want to have a lawyer in the room. They may say, can I have my lawyer here? I can't talk about this because, and you then report that you can't talk about it because. Don Hewitt used to say you can report anything as long as you report the circumstances and the ground rules. And I think that's true. As long as you say, we cannot talk to this person about that, you're clear. That's all you can do.
You had the first.
There are some ground rules where if you do a story on a book, it's based around a book, you may have to show a copy of the book. And if you're doing a story on somebody who doesn't normally give interviews around a movie they're promoting, you need to show a clip from the movie.